All right, Stacy, can you hear me back there? Okay. So, I wanted to take an opportunity to show you guys some more about the Moz Keyword Explorer tool. Reason being, I still see a lot of people using Keyword Planner for SEO. It is still one of the tools that we need to have in our arsenal, but there have been some changes made to the tool itself by Google over the last couple years that have made it less and less useful for SEO keyword research. And we have this really cool tool called Moz that can do a ton of stuff. And I know some of you guys are kind of, dedicated to using that tool. Some of you guys are maybe using it sometimes, but I also know there's probably a pretty big chunk that haven't used it yet, don't really know what the differences are, what it's capable of. And that's really what I wanted to go through today. Not how to build a keyword universe, but more so, here's this other tool that we should be exploring and why we should be exploring it, and also dive in a little bit into how to use it. So, in terms of agenda, I want to talk about why the keyword planner is dead-ish, the new, better approach to use, and then I'm still doing some exploration too, so I'm also curious in hearing from you guys what you found valuable, what kind of tactics and success stories that you have, and also what kind of questions that you have. Ultimately, coming out of this, what I'm hoping to do is update some of our core processes around keyword research and get Moz and some other tools in the mix here. So, I think core processes work best when defined in actual use, so I'm going to be looking to you guys also to say, hey, here's some new way I found to use this tool, or here's the best way I found to use this tool, and then kind of aggregate all that information into a process that when interns come in, we can say, this is how we now do keyword research. Here's a guide, here's a video that you can look at and help catch them up to speed that way. So, a little background on the keyword planner. It always has been for advertisers. Google doesn't, they're always kind of cryptic around SEO, and so it's always been something specifically for advertisers. We see that even more now than ever before, in that if you don't have high spending AdWords accounts associated with the keyword planner account that you're logging into, it doesn't give you as accurate of volume as it does with if you're not signed in. So instead of seeing ranges from 11 to 50, if you're actually signed in with high spending AdWords accounts, it'll say this is 50 searches a month, but otherwise it'll give you these ranges. So that's not really that helpful. The suggestions are kind of limited, especially in niches. So they give you 800 suggestions based off the keyword you enter. Moz gives you 1,000. So there's another 200 keywords hiding in there. We've seen it now starting to rewrite keywords that we know have volume. And not only rewriting keywords, but what they're really doing is they're grouping keywords that are similar under the same keyword. And I'll get more to that later. But if you type in something with a plural, sometimes it'll show you just the singular. And actually the plural volume is lumped in with that. But you can't figure out what's what. Moz doesn't have that problem. And then the whole competition metric. So we know that the competition metric in Keyword Planner is for PPC. So we've relied on in-title a lot. But that's not entirely comprehensive of the true competition. That'll tell you how many pages have that in their page title. It doesn't tell you anything about the domain of the competitors on the domain authority of the competitors on the first page, the page authority that they're ranking for, stuff like that. So Moz takes a lot more of that stuff into account as a true SEO tool. Keyword Planner still works really well for PPC, and it still should be used some for SEO, but I want to talk about a new, better approach. So the process itself remains the same. when you're doing keyword research, you're starting with your seed keywords, you're generating keyword ideas off of that, you're then categorizing them based on product or funnel or intent. And then from there, you prioritize them and plan a strategy of attack, whether it's new content or AWOPs or whatever you're trying to do at the time. Auto-suggest on Google, related searches on Google, bolded words on the search engine results pages, all that stuff is still useful too. So your core process doesn't really change much. It's just the tool set that you're adding another tool to your toolbox. So here's why I think Moz is going to be more useful for us for SEO than the keyword planner. It has more suggestions, and especially in the longer tail side of things. So sometimes 30% more suggestions, but you're going to cap out at 1,000 versus 800, which is what the keyword planner gives you. You can group your keywords by lexical similarity, which is something that is really important for SEO, knowing what keywords are kind of similar to one another, and especially as Google's algorithm gets smarter and smarter and gets more away from exact targeting to synonyms and things like that. That lexical similarity is going to be a great bank of secondaries for us.
What is lexical similarity?
It's words that are similar to one another in terms of context. Does that make sense? Shoes and sneakers are lexically similar. It also gives you an analysis of the search engine results page by keyword. So you can know what you're up against based on what ranks page 1 versus the page titles, or what's showing up in your in-title search. It integrates really nicely with keyword tracking. Keyword Planner doesn't have that. So while you're doing your keyword research, at the same time you can see where you're ranking for these different keywords, which can tell you where to focus. And it's filterable in different ways than Keyword Planner, more appropriate for SEO. There are some kind of lacking features though. So it's not all gravy. There are some things to be aware of. So if we look here, there are volume disparities. So up top is seeing how much marketing staffing agencies has in terms of volume on Moz, saying 11 to 50 searches a month. On Keyword Planner, it says 210. So that's a huge difference. But what's going on there is that Keyword Planner is including these close variants of the keyword to make the volumes look higher so that more people bid on that term on AdWords and things like that. So if I were to lump in marketing staffing agency and words similar to that, then it would probably get up to that 210. If you want city, state-based data with Moz, somebody have a question?
Yeah, I was going to ask.
I'm sorry.
Because I know with Keyword Planner you have the ability to look at the chart of different months to see what the search volume was like in each month. Do you know if that's possible?
I don't know offhand. That's something we can look at.
I like your perspective though on the difference between Moz and AdWords. It's kind of like AdWords isn't necessarily saying this way people are searching for it for this keyword. It's like it said if you bid on this keyword, this is how many searches could potentially trigger your ad.
Bingo, yeah. That's a good way to phrase it. Other disadvantage, you can't get state, city-based data in Moz. You're limited to country. So if it's a very local play, you may need to lean on the Keyword Planner more. But there's a couple takeaways here. The one thing and the biggest thing and the most important thing is that when we're talking about dramatically different volumes between keywords from two different tool sets, we need to pick one, and that's the one that we need to report volume off of. So when we're creating keyword universes and everything, having a mismatch of data from Keyword Planner and Moz is going to make things difficult to decipher what's really going on. So we need to use one source for volume. I recommend Moz because it's actually giving you the volume for that exact phrase rather than lumping in those variants. So moving forward, I would say any keyword research done that includes volume and going into keyword universes, let's use Moz.
What about in terms of like the local side of things? Like, if there's a client that it makes only sense to have
Like Delta's really into that, I know.
Yeah, but so for like Woolon Berman, we only really care about Maryland. So what would be in the keyword universe? Would I still just use national volume or
That might be one of the areas where we use the keyword planner.
Okay.
So the other thing,
Yeah, that's specify which.
you could do that, but at the minimum, I'm going to ask that you guys label where the statistics are coming from on your keyword universes. So if you say this is coming from Keyword Planner, cool. If you say this is coming from Moz, cool. That way other people that hop in there and you, when you hop in there a couple months from now, can remember where it's coming from. So I wanted to do some kind of live action, how to use the keyword, or how to use Moz's Keyword Explorer, and show you how I've used it. The gist of things is to start with a seed keyword, select anything relevant fast, add them to a list in Moz. Lists can be products, funnels, etc. Then we will open up our list, check our rankings, assign priority, and then filter to get to the goodies. So I'm going to show you guys how to do that right now. Quick show of hands, who has used Moz Keyword Explorer? So pretty much everyone looks like they used it. Who feels like they know how to use it really well? Less people. Okay, good. I was kind of hoping that everyone didn't know how to use it well, otherwise this training would be moot. So when you sign into Moz, everybody knows how to get into Moz, right? Team password. Okay. So you start with your seed keyword. I'm just going to put in hotline services. So it's going to give you the volume, the difficulty, opportunity, whatever, of that keyword. The good stuff lives down in this keyword suggestions section. So you want to click in to see all the suggestions. And then there's a couple things at play here. There are different ways to filter them. So you can show keywords that are just questions. You can show keywords that are based on related topics. You can exclude your term to only get other terms that are similar to it. Usually I would recommend starting out on this include a mix of sources, so it would include all of these things basically. And then you can group the keywords here with the different lexical similarity. And then you can also filter by volume. I usually leave it pretty vanilla to start out with. And basically I would go through and check the terms that, based on just reading them and intent, that I see to be relevant. So all of these are relevant, and then I would click all of these ones that are relevant, and you can keep scrolling to the next page and doing the same thing over and over again until you get through all the words. And then you can add them to a list. So I already created a list here, so I'm not going to create a new one. The way that these lists are best used, because you can't really, it's difficult to you can't categorize your keywords in the list, which is kind of unfortunate. So the lists themselves should be your categories. So I just did something for hotline services that's related to the Client Compliance Resource Center. They also have other services that would warrant different lists. So hotline service could warrant one list. Sanctioned screening services, another product they have, could warrant another list. Compliance surveys would be another list that I would create, and so on and so on.
And is there a limit to lists, or just the number of keywords you can have in that list?
Yeah, we are limited.
We are limited by lists, but if we're getting use out of them, then and we're really using this thing, then we can buy more. And I think the next bump up is pretty significant for us. I think we go to from 100 lists to 1,000 lists, in which case we probably won't exhaust those. So I'm just going to go into the list that I already created so you guys can check that out. Whoops. So again, process probably that we need to create here is a nomenclature for how to name these lists. Client code dash the category is probably a good way to go. So here's 50 keywords that are in this list now, and the really cool thing, and one of the reasons I'm so excited about this, is that you can have all of these keywords in your list, but then you can actually type in your domain and it'll instantly tell you where you're ranking for them. So if I'm looking at my list and I see that we're ranking number 1 for a compliance hotline, it's probably not a keyword I need to spend a whole lot of time focusing on. We're already number 1. So you can actually then give scores yourself to help prioritize these keywords in terms of your definition of importance. So one way I could see this being used, and this is another area where I'm going to be looking to help from you guys to see what's the best way to use this, but one way I could see this being used is you can make keywords that you're already ranking number 1 for a lower priority here, and then go through, and then the ones that are really attractive to you, you make a higher priority, and then you can actually come up here and filter by the different scores that you have. So you can say, just show me ones that I said were a priority of 7 or more, and that will get rid of all the ones that you've said are not a priority because we already rank very well for them, or are not a priority because the metrics just aren't there, and things like that. So it'll just show you the most important keywords to you. So that's kind of cool. They have a different set of scores. So their difficulty score is not in title. What it does is it actually looks at, I have a slide for this. That takes into account the page authority and domain authority of the pages that are ranking on the first page of Google. And that's a big differentiator. So it's not so much about is something in their page title, it's what else has drawn these guys to the first page of Google. You can do an in-title search sometimes and not find people that are ranking on the first page of Google, and they're still ranking there even though they don't have their keyword verbatim in their page title. So this difficulty score could potentially be a lot more useful. What I need to figure out is what a good score is, and that varies by client. So different clients, based on their own page authority and domain authority, are going to have a better chance of ranking for some words than others. So if you're going up against so there's kind of 2 things you need to know now. What is the page authority and domain authority of your competitors that are ranking on the first page for that keyword, which you can easily see in Moz? And then what is your own page authority and domain authority, to see if you can really break that pack. Volume, you guys know what that is. The one thing I'll say is don't be afraid to target low volume keywords if they're easy wins and greater than 10. That's always a practice that I've followed, and I've generally had success with it.
So, do you also need like the data in Moz? Because I noticed you added filters to your list.
Yeah, so if it's no data, I'd cross-reference it with keyword planner to see if there's something around it. But really, I'm talking more about like these 11 to 50s, which we, gut would tell you to avoid. But just know that if you rank number one for fraud hotline services, you probably rank pretty well for fraud hotline service. You probably rank pretty well for hotline services for fraud. And so there's more volume behind this than meets the eye. And you can actually, if I want to see the search engine result page for a given keyword, there's this SERP analysis over here. And so here's the top 10 results. And we can see the page authority and domain authority for the things ranking for that. So if we look at our Client Compliance Resource Center, we can see that this page has a lot more authority than the top 5 results. So that's probably a reason that we are able to rank so well for it.
So it only gives you, when it's talking about rankings, if it's in the top 10, it won't tell you kind of like what.
Here it tells you the top 10. There's other ways you can get the full thing. So, does anyone have any questions on anything covered so far? All pretty cut and dry? Okay. One other really cool thing about this, if I look back at this view, is this only include keywords with all of the query terms. If you select that, so if you remember I typed in hotline services, this will pull in long tail variations of the word hotline services. So what this is saying is only include words that have hotline services in them already and have something to either side of them. It's like phrase match in the keyword planner. So now you can, that's a good way where if you see your volume is too, if your competition is too high for a given keyword, you can find longer tail variations that you could probably rank for off the bat while you build the authority to try and rank for that higher competition, shorter tail keyword. So I also wanted to talk a little bit about what else Moz has up its sleeve. And Alex, I'm looking to some help from you here.
Sure. So Luke's kind of giving you a tour of the lists over here, where you can, group your keywords and prioritize them as he's shown you. And there's a couple of different tools that Moz has that hopefully makes the whole SEO workflow and decision-making process a little bit more scientific and a little bit more cut and dry, and just easier. So if you could go back to the right over here, and just a couple of things that we've been looking at the lists. There's also campaigns. I just want to point out the difference there. So a campaign, we are more limited on those, but we can open up more. And this is just something that ties all of these tools together and holds a little bit more historical information and makes it so you can find all this stuff all in one place. So you've got your rankings for more than just the top 10. You've got rankings over time and things like that. And we have a ton of campaigns set up in here. So I think people may already at least be familiar with the fact that there are campaigns. And Luke already kind of gave you a preview of the SERP analysis, which is super useful. And I had a couple other things that I wanted to go over, but I think also people maybe know about the Open Site Explorer. Raise your hand if that sounds familiar. Okay, yeah, so that's like a great backlink tool, and that Moz offers, and is probably worth a whole maybe other training or video in and of itself. But I thought it would be useful to step through an example that came up this morning when I was talking to Nick and Anne about Matrax, just to go through the my thought process when I'm using Moz and some of these different tools, how they can fit together and help you make decisions about what SEO activities are going to have the biggest bang for your buck. So if I hop over, I can look right here.
Got you on Matrix.
Oh, cool, perfect. So this morning, Nick and Ann were asking me about a particular page that they wanted to rank for outrigger pads. Did I get that right? Outrigger pads? So one thing I might do, if this is a keyword that we're really, it's very important to us, we're probably already tracking it here, and it's in our keyword universe or our list, and we're tracking it over here. So I actually, in fact, do find it right here, outrigger pads. And so I can see, we have a couple of variations, long tails on this, but for our outrigger pads, we're ranking currently number 13. Over here in the right-hand column, there's this optimize thing, and you have to click each one of these individually, but when you do, it'll real quickly, and I'll just click one right here, it'll real quickly give you an analysis of basically on-page AWAP best practices. And it'll score you from 0 to 100, and there's a couple of different ways that you can use this and a couple of different interesting things here. So I'll step back here. I just wanted to show you the process of clicking that button, and it won't let me go back, but we're going to get back there.
Does that mean we did well since that one was not?
For that one keyword that
For
you're
that
ranking
one
number
keyword.
1 for already.
Right. Outrigger pads. Here we go. So I already did this earlier for outrigger pads. 87 score, which is really high. And you can see that it'll make a couple of recommendations. And for the most part, these are things that we already know they're part of our best practices. But it can be nice to just get a really quick snapshot of whether or not there's low-hanging fruit. If this was a 60 and we were moments away from the first page, then doing a quick AWAP on this page might be all we need to do, and then we can stop kind of our decision-making process and say, okay, cool, that's the activity. There's some other really important stuff here that is probably more useful, which, and I know, Luke, you're a big fan of this, the content suggestions. So longer content is better, and we know that secondary keywords are really important for SEO. These are topics that Moz has discovered are talked about on other highly ranking pages, and some of them are going to be more useful than others. And we can click in and see more, and like some of these I have no idea what they are, but like this is a material type, I know. And so if the page doesn't already talk about that, listing those different material types and things like that can be a way to increase the length of your content, increase the number of secondaries that you're including, and making the content more useful. So I highly encourage you, even if you have a really high rank here, the next thing that you can look at is, are there any content suggestions here that look useful and that you can add to the page? That might be kind of the next lowest hanging fruit.
And our current approach to secondaries, I feel like, is pretty solid. It's, we look at what keywords are related to our keyword. We look at what synonyms do we know, what's showing up in auto-suggest and things like that. But this literally goes and looks at the top ranking pages for those terms and says these words appear most commonly on those top ranking pages. So for us to include these in addition to the ones that we find on our own should make our page super duper relevant. And this is just one more tool in the arsenal that's actually a little bit more database than the approach that we take right now. Yeah.
I thought that the one thing that had the recommendation of Red that was like the one keyword style thing was really interesting. I think that would be really impactful for a lot of our legacy clients. So now I feel like I'm climbing up the years here. When I first started, I remember one thing we did, like that lexical similarity wasn't as big of a deal when I was first starting writing content. So we would have like outrigger pads and mats, train outrigger pads, like being able to go back, like it says no more than 15 times. If we're using it more than 15 times, that's a lot. But I'd be curious too what impact that would have on our other keywords if we were to try to write for this shorter term by optimizing the page to take away some of the.
Yeah, and this one I would take kind of with a grain of salt, because they could have 15 different materials of outrigger pads on their site, on their page, and it could be like steel outrigger pads, wooden outrigger pads, whatever. And it could not be keyword stuffed. It could make perfect sense to a human when they read it. And this is just there's got to be some trigger point in here where they say you had this many words on the page and this many of them contained outrigger pads, so we're going to throw a little flag up there. But it doesn't necessarily mean that the page is keyword stuffed per se. So that falls into kind of the risky bucket for me, which is removing stuff that might be working. Now, if the page isn't ranking for anything, then do whatever you want with it. But if it is ranking well for things, you need to keep that in mind, and deleting and rewriting content is a lot more risky than just adding a couple of paragraphs.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. So what if you rank pretty highly here, you don't really have any more on-page things to do, and your content is already incorporating all or most of these content suggestions, and you can't really think of any on your own to add to the page, but you're still not ranking where you want to go. That's where the SERP analysis really comes in handy, where we can just click on the same keyword, and it's going to serve us up this SERP analysis that Luke was showing us earlier. And it's coming up right now. Uh-oh, maybe that's...
You guys remember, it's going to give you the domain authority and the page authority of the different pages.
That's
So-
probably why.
There we go. Oh, nope.
Raise your hand if you're logged in.
Here we go. Ah,
Raise your hand if you're logged in.
everyone kicked it out. Okay, so again, outrigger pads, this is showing us position over time. And then down here is SERP analysis. Just like Luke was saying, you can quickly get a snapshot of whether the things keeping you out of the top are your domain authority, your page authority, your linking root domains to the page. And at this point, you can say, okay, is it a keyword that's just out of reach right now because we don't have the domain authority? In which case, you can go ahead and do some branded backlinks and things like that to improve the overall authority of the site, which you should be doing anyway, but this kind of points you in that direction. If you've already got a pretty good domain authority compared to the competition here, you can then look at, okay, what's the page authority of the page that we're trying to rank? If it's lower than the competition, some internal linking might be the answer there, as well as backlinks. This is linking root domains to page in order to increase that authority. And as you can see, even just a couple of backlinks to a page or internal links to kind of push the page authority up a little bit might be enough to help us crack into at least the first page here. And it shows you our 2 pages here. So right now, Matrax, pretty low domain authority. Definitely see that as an area of improvement to help us along here. But also the page authority of these pages is pretty low, and there might be internal linking opportunities that can help bolster that a little bit.
So domain authority is real hard to impact on the spot. It's like near impossible. Link building is not the easiest thing in the world. Will, what's your success rate in terms of reach out to actual
Less
links
than
built?
3%.
Yeah, so 3%. Maybe we can get that to 10%. That would be fantastic, but I don't expect to get anything beyond that. And so the easiest thing, and the thing it really works, guys, is building internal links to your important pages. You have control over it. It's your site. You can do that, and it really works. And I've seen it time and time again. Amanda, we just did that with Portal Solutions and the new service page they put up. You added those links, and then they went from ranking like page 3 to number 5, I think, for that word here, Office 365 Consulting or whatever. So that was just Amanda. We published a page. It didn't land where we wanted it to. Got with Amanda, and I said, let's find 10 blog posts and link to our service page when relevant. And we did that, and it boosted the ranking. We did the same thing. We did the same thing with Power BI service for them. Hello bars point a crap ton of links to your pages really quickly if there's a very important page on your site that you want to rank well. With IMS, we had this page around UPick that was ranking like number 5 or 6, and then that was like their core initiative for a period, so I put a hello bar to that page with a link to it, and then it jumped up to number 1. So internal links really work. You have a lot of control over them, the structure of them, and making sure you're not exact matching all of your target keywords with the anchor text is important, but it's something that you have control over, and it's a lot easier than building building links from other websites. Those are important too, but they take longer.
Yep.
So this looks like a pretty cut and dry example of we could increase our page authority potentially and at least knock liftings out of there. He's got 1 and 1. That's my piece.
Yeah. So that's where I would kind of end up on this. And Nick, when I was talking to you this morning, you guys were already building these pages that kind of fall under the Outrigger Pads umbrella. So building out those pages for the more specific long tails that you want to rank for, and then internally linking those back up is exactly what Luke is suggesting, and is something that's probably going to bump you up here. Did you have a question?
So something that interesting that I noticed is one of the new pages we created, which is like a sub page of the main page,
Yeah.
is the one that's ranking above.
Right.
And that the page we're optimizing is like the higher tier page. So when it did that analysis before of the content, it was analyzing not this page, but the other page that I guess is ranking 1 above it. Is there a way to do like
To
it for the
define
other
what page?
Yeah, instead, because this page is the one that apparently is ranking above it, but it's already like optimized and everything as of recently. So if we wanted to optimize that other page instead, to potentially be the page that ranks for the term.
Sorry.
Oh, sure.
Like, is there a way to do that?
Yep. So you would go to page optimization, put in your keyword and the URL,
Okay,
and then it gives
okay.
you the same information for that individual page.
Awesome.
Yep.
I'm thinking training on internal linking structures and architecture and silos are probably warranted, probably by the best Mr. Levi over there. No. But yeah, that's something that could be useful, I think.
Are there other things that the page that's currently ranking higher should be ranking for? Or is it
The
also
composite outrigger pads, so that's like the main term for it. So the more specific outrigger pads term is the one that we want to rank a little higher.
So this page should only rank for composite outrigger pads. The other page should rank for outrigger pads.
Right.
right? And this is currently ranking higher for just outrigger.
Yes.
So this is a tactic that will kind of jumpstart that. Like in this instance, it's not a horrible thing because they're so related. But something I've done in the past, when you have a page that inadvertently is ranking for something and doing really well, but it's just not supposed to be not relevant. To jumpstart it, I will actually drop a canonical tag to the other page and basically just suck the life out of it for a minute. Google will switch it pretty quick, usually within a week.
And then you can remove
And
it.
then you're starting kind of from ground zero, getting it to rank for the other thing. So I've seen that work a few different times, but you have to be very cognizant of what you're doing to that page. If it's
What is the outrigger? What's the page you want to rank?
That
The
the
top,
top
that
one.
one.
Yeah, 9 pages strong.
So we're like midway through. The bottom 2 pages have been optimized. This top page, as you can see, has like no content on it or explanation. So our goal is to optimize this top one, adding content. So some explanation and like context behind what these are, where these bottom 2 have all of that already. They're very detailed.
What about adding
Yeah.
a link to the one that's ranking higher that says like
That's what I was
webinar
thinking
composite
too.
pages?
Yeah, I don't know if we have a link
I mean, there's two things that I can see. Like, one, I guess this is the H1 up here.
It's actually not an H1. We're fixing that.
That's
But
supposed to be the
one
H1?
That's going to be the H1 is the matrix composite outrigger pad. So like that,
Yeah.
that one is the H1 on all the other pages.
So we have basically a lot of pages that are talking about composite outrigger pads. We have this one, and then we have the actual composite outrigger pads page. This one obviously has a lot more words on the page than this one does. It looks like some of the content is probably similar between the two pages, like these graphs
At the moment.
and stuff. So it seems like we need to make this page more unique and have a more specific H1 that doesn't mention composite. Just Matrax outrigger pads, if that's the keyword, or outrigger pads by Matrax or whatever. And then ultimately, all of these child pages that you're building need to link back up to that parent page. And if you do that, it should start to build more authority to that parent page. It'll help that PA score go up. And because the titles are not like the same on both pages, Google will see that they're different and that this is ultimately like your more authoritative page. And that could potentially help as well. Anything from the blog that you could then point to that page internally will give it a little bit extra pop as well.
So you see in the second sentence where it says Matrax is a composite outrigger pads manufacturer. It's not unique, ladder, long lasting. Holy crap! Anyway, where it says outrigger pads in that sentence, link that.
Right.
Right? Just that specific, or even that. Yeah, I didn't even see that one. That's a huge indicator. The placement of that being one of your top things will make a difference. Now, the option I gave with the canonical tag is an oh shit moment. The stuff that we're talking about right here will eventually work, but it can take time.
Yeah.
You know, so act accordingly. If it's something that you've got time and you want it to just
Keep your point hat.
grow, whatever.
Put questions on this too, like what are outrigger pads? Make that a H2 and define that. Maybe you'll grab something in that little answers box up at the top of Google too.
One thing I did for Express, and I don't know if this really has any SEO impact, but I think it's really good from a user experience standpoint, is that when you have these very long pages, like if you're going to be optimizing this being outriggers pads page, and you have 4 different things you're talking about, and each section is as long as the first, just composite outrigger pads page. I added in after the intro paragraph, like anchor text links to each individual section. So it's like if you're looking for a specific one, you just click it and it takes you down. So SEO impact, I'm not sure, but that gives you the power to have that longer piece of content, but still direct users to where they want to be on the page.
So this was kind of the gist. Alex and I are working on some documents. He put together this cheat sheet. I can share this with all of you guys. That kind of goes through the steps that we were working today, what buttons to click. We ultimately want to come away with some videos and, useful training materials that we can give to future generations of web mechanics folks, and also so you guys can keep to for refreshers. Is there any questions or anything that you guys have as a result of this?
Are we officially moving away from entitled, or is this still just kind of like a testing phase?
I'm still in a testing phase. I still need to figure out what the ultimate impact is on the keyword universe and different processes we have like that. What I really hope to get away from this is please explore Moz. Please, see if it is more useful for you than the keyword planner. Spend some time with it. Get your clients set up in there, and basically start figuring out the best ways to use this tool, and then share that with everybody. And then we can put together this core process, because 20 people testing this out is going to be we're going to learn a lot faster than me and my little box testing it out by myself and saying, woohoo, this is awesome, but I need to see that you guys actually think it's awesome too.
I just have another side note, something that I've used Moz for in the past. Specifically, if you're having, this is more of a competitor analysis tactic. This is something we did for Valera, something we did for Express to kind of see how we perform against competitors. When you're tracking your rankings, you can also add your competitors into Moz and tell you how your competitors are ranking as well, which can be really helpful. Sometimes, allergies. If you're in a tough spot, like trying to get increasing rankings, saying like, okay, we're slowly going up, but when you compare yourself to your client's top competitors, you might see that you're still miles ahead of them. So it's kind of something good to have in your back pocket. It might not be something you refer to often, but something that Moz allows you to do is just compare yourself to your competitors over time. So if you see a big drop and your clients see a big drop, or their competitors see a big drop, you know, it might not be just something you're doing, it's something that's happening industry-wide. So,
Clients love that too.
yeah.
I mean, we have some clients that just, their entire goal is to beat a certain competitor. Any other questions?
Is that just in your campaign?
Yeah. The campaign equals client. You can think of that like that. All right. Well, I'm curious to see, how you guys adopt this, what kind of cool stuff you find. Please let me know if you have any questions. Alex has used this a lot too. You can let him know if you have any questions. What do Moz people say? Happy Mozing? Happy Mozing? Moz on. Whatever.
Thanks, Lou.
All right.
Thank you.